Hello, happy snow day. I'm taking advantage of the snow day to offer you another lecturette so that we can stay on course with our studies. Today I'm going to be I'm going to give the first introduction to the idea of 12-tone technique, which was a method of composition developed by the Austrian composer Arnold Schoenberg. In response to a feeling that in freely atonal music, something was lost in terms of large-scale structure, the ability to have just a governing universe of connections and interconnectedness that exist in tonal pieces was not there in tonal music. This is a largely misunderstood technique. It's even perhaps a mistake to think of it as a single technique, as most composers who practiced it did it in different ways. But the basic idea is that the foundation of a 12-tone composition is a row, a succession of 12 pitch classes, which is going to be repeated in order in various ways throughout the piece, such that in the works, at least of Schoenberg and the 12-tone works of Webern, all of the notes in the piece can be connected to a statement of the 12 pitch classes in sequence. So now you'll see I've written on the screen a succession of 12 pitches. Now it is a succession of 12 pitch classes, but I want to just specify the difference. These are actually written in specific octaves and in a specific register. I'm using the bass clarinet, so it's kind of low. And let's listen to it, and we'll hear what a 12-tone row can sound like. Now, if this were the basis of my composition, I wouldn't necessarily start with the row like this. In fact, I might want to start with just a representation of the row as 12 pitch class integers. And I'm going to pull that up right here, right? So we see E flat A, B flat C is, E, gotta learn my clefs, is 3, 9, T4. And then in the next measure, we've got 8, A flat, 7, G, 1, C sharp, D is 2. And then we move on to the third measure, E5, 6, 0, B is E, F is 5, F sharp 6, and C natural is O. So a conception of this as 12 pitch classes means that I could do whatever I want to the registral placement of these notes. For instance, I could bring this one up an octave, and I could bring this these two up an octave, and this might go down, and maybe I'll bring this say down, and I of course have to live within the registral constraint of the instrument I'm writing for. But now I've made this a bit more of kind of a rangy piece that kind of jumps over the place, and we can listen to this again. And when it comes to writing 12-tone music, some composers who use the technique spend a lot of time to build into their row various kinds of properties, and all 12-tone rows have certain properties, and we'll talk about what I mean by that. In the case of this one, we could think about its intervallic content, right? So we've got a tritone, and then a minor second. I hate to use these tonal intervals, or we could call it a 1, and then another tritone. And then we've got a major third, minor second, tritone, and then this is a second with or a major seventh down, major sixth up, tritone up, and major seventh down, tritone up. So we could talk about the intervallic properties here, and in some sense, a 12-tone row is not just a succession of 12 pitch classes, but it might more accurately be understood as a succession of 12 pitch class intervals. And I want to hold that idea in our minds for a moment. I'll come back to it, if not in this video, and maybe the next one. But I want to talk about how we might continue a 12-tone piece based on this particular row. First of all, I could go in and turn this into music. I might listen to it one more time and think about we might want to give a dynamic, and I will let's see if I can do that. Let's call it forte, and let's set up maybe some articulations. I'm being somewhat arbitrary here, but this is some of what I, in listening to it, I had some ideas about what might work. I'm doing so let's see what that is. And I might also put in, say, a tempo marking. I'm going to put, I could almost imagine this much faster, and I might even create a tempo mark, and you can't necessarily see what I'm doing, but now you can. Half note equals 90, and I'll say briskly. Oops, that's not going to work. And assign that. Now, all right, and we're getting sort of not the world's greatest, most impressive forte, and I might mess around with that some more. But the question is, how does this composition continue? And the answer is that the next thing that would happen, let's say this is a solo bass clarinet piece, is that a number of things could happen. One thing is that I might repeat this row, and I could have some kind of melodic repetition where, I'll delete that. Maybe we have some kind of quiet response, and I maybe mezzo piano, and again, these are pitch classes, so I can change the octaves as much as I want. And let's bring that one down. Let's bring this one up, and let's bring this one up, and this one, and this one. All right, so I'm changing the contour, I'm changing the registral placement. I'm keeping the succession of pitch classes the same. And as I listen to this, I think, gosh, wouldn't it be better if we kept those and we separated these? So, any succession of notes is going to develop a kind of character and going to begin to form itself into music, and we can't help but respond with thinking about articulations, etc. And then here, by up, and and so on. So that's how we might do it. Now, I might also, just looking here, let's say I wanted to have a very, very quick run. And maybe we're up here. And remember, this is a pretty fast tempo. So there is a very fast run. And again, this is just these same 12 pitch classes. And at this tempo, we may want to do something a little bit slower. So I can maybe they're triplets. And then we'll move that to the next measure. And maybe this is the pattern. Again, arbitrary, and it would be great to be take more time and be more musical, but I'm just kind of demonstrating that there's a lot we can do with this language. So. Okay, and it's not the greatest response there from the sample when we get to these triplets. And you also may be saying, gosh, okay, we're at the, we've got one repetition, and then we've got a second repetition, and then we've got a third repetition here of the row, and at some point, you can imagine that this might get a little bit boring. So what could we do? Well, I could take my row, and what I could do is I could transpose it. Maybe in order to get a different first four notes, I'll transpose this set up by 2. I hope I do it right. It's kind of late. Oh, I didn't do it, did I? Here, that's a mistake. There we go. Okay. If I transpose, I did T2 of the row, and now this is 5E06 T9 34 1782. That's a transposition. Now I could just take this this line right here, and I could transpose this either up maybe I'll go up a major second. Right? And you might say, wait a minute, this is no longer the same row, but in fact, this is the same row. It's just transposed. So we would say that this is a different form of the row. Okay, and that's one way that we can begin to get variety, and it should actually become apparent to you that there are as many transpositions possible of the row as there are pitch classes. Right? So T4, 5, I could just keep going and develop all my different forms of the row to get variety. And you might say, okay, well, then you can use any succession of pitches you want, and the answer is no. you are bound to this particular succession. Now we understand it's not necessarily a succession of pitch classes. It's a succession of pitch class intervals, because that's what's going to remain constant here, right? So from if I want to write in the pitch class intervals, I will I'll use my text tool for now, and we will see that I've got from E flat to A. We're going to call that a 6. Okay, and remember, pitch class intervals are the ones on the clock phase. So from 9 to T is a 1, and from T to 4 is a 6. From 4 to 8 is a 4. Move this around. From 8 to 7 is an 11. Remember, we're going from the first, from 8 to 7 to the second. From 7 to 1 is a 6. From 1 to 2 is a 1. And from 2 to 11 is a 9. I'm sorry, 11 to 5. And that's from 5 to 6. From 5 to 6 is just a 1. And from 6 to 0 is a 6. And this succession, 6, 1, 6, 4, 11, 6, 1, 9, 6, 1, 6, is what is going to be held constant for all of these transpositions of the row. So for right now, I'm going to talk about other forms of the row in the next video, but for right now, understand 12-tone technique. What we know so far is that a 12-tone row is a succession of 12 pitch classes that can be transposed. It is to be used in order. We're going to hear those pitches in order, but it can also be transposed. So we might hear other pitch classes that are just maintaining the same intervallic succession. And I think that might be a great place to stop with the initial introduction to 12-tone technique, and we'll move on with another one soon. Thanks.